Hi, I'm Doug Mayer from Run the Alps, and welcome to a special audio feature that we're calling Tales from the Trail, Stories from Je Suis Franc in Chamonix, France. Let me explain. This audio download was recorded at our annual staff, guides, and friends gathering held recently at Je Suis Franc, a unique and really wonderful bistro located in a centuries-old building high above Servoz, France, in the Chamonix Valley. That night, about 40 of us gathered to celebrate the year past, to visit, and simply to catch up with each other. It was a really wonderful time. As part of the evening's festivities, we asked three of our guests, Hilary Gerardi, Stephanie Case, and Mirna Valerio, to each share a story. Hilary, Steph, and Mirna are three athletes who each in their own way are leading our world of trail running forward. And the stories they shared with us that evening are alternatingly laugh-out-loud funny, touching, and for many of us, deeply relatable. Run the Alps is first and foremost a community. That's how we think about it. And something special happened when these three friends of ours told their stories. Because they were among friends also, it all felt really easygoing and warm. The connection was real and resulted in a particularly relaxed, fun vibe. We hope you feel it also. If you're listening, you're part of our community also. Sharing our world here, trail running in the Alps, is what Run the Alps is all about. We're delighted you too can enjoy part of this special evening with these three great stories. So grab a cafe au lait, a glass of wine, or maybe a croissant or a baguette. Kick back and enjoy Tales from the Trail, stories from Je Suis Franc in Chamonix, France. Let's get started. First up is Stephanie Case, one of the world's top long-distance mountain runners. Achieving podium results in that space requires most people to have a single-minded focus. But Steph has excelled in all kinds of fields. A former UN human rights lawyer, she also founded Free to Run, a charity that advances gender equity in areas of conflict through running and leadership programs for women and girls. In this story, Steph takes us through mountain storms and over high passes during the 330-kilometer-long Tour de Géant, a multi-day mountain race in northern Italy with a 150-hour time limit. It's a race she knows well, having run both Tour de Géant 4 times and the even longer and more technical 450-kilometer-long Tour de Glacier, finishing as first woman and third overall in the 2021 edition of that race. Steph lives in Servoz, France, here in the Chamonix Valley with her partner and daughter. Her story tonight has some themes familiar to many of us who trail run, but with a surprise ending that reminds us why we all love this sport so much.
When I was thinking about what story to tell tonight, I thought, should I tell some super inspiring story about doing the marathon with in Afghanistan with Afghan women, or doing a ultra marathon across the Dasht-e-Lut Desert in Iran with the only Iranian women? And I decided to actually go a little bit more basic and tell you about a story that's more local to me, and it's actually about Tour de Géant. So this is probably the race that I love the most. It was the biggest challenge of my life and coincided with a time when I offered my first unborn child to a stranger. And I wanted to tell you about how those circumstances came about. So for those of you who don't know, Tour de Géant is a 330-kilometer race in Aosta Valley. And there is 24,000 meters of climbing. So that's the equivalent of about 3 Everests from sea level to the top. And competitors have 150 hours to finish. So it's a race like no other. I had done 100 milers before, but I had never done a race of that distance, of that magnitude, something that it was completely unknowable to me. What happens to the body when you go for days and days and days through all sorts of different weather patterns, up at elevation, over 3,000 meters, down in the valleys. I had no idea really what I would be getting into, but I looked at it as a bit of an adventure, a bit of a science experiment, and I signed up. So this was 2015. And we looked at the weather forecast going into the race to see what it would be like. And we knew that there would be bad weather ahead. But for the first day, it would be okay. And so I set off. Everything was going well on the first day. I was sitting in about top 10, running with the other women. I was doing the climbs pretty well, eating chips, getting, good Italian pasta at the refuges. And this is a race where you hit these big kind of refueling points called life bases. There's 5 life bases throughout the race at about every 50K. But in between the life bases, there are little checkpoints that are usually mountain huts, off in the mountains, in the woods, up on tops of peaks, where you can get some food and even take a little nap if you need to. So we're going along. I make it through the first day, sitting in top 10. We're doing fine. Night hits. The bad weather starts to come in. And it got so bad at one point, even on that first night, that they actually had to pause the race and hold hundreds of runners at different points along the valleys, so that the mountain guides could climb up to the cols and actually cut in steps into the ice so that we would be able to make the mountain passes. So I thought that was a big hurdle that we got past. I went up over the ice, went down, got into the second day. Weather started coming in. And this was rain that turned to sleet and snow in the high passes. You were just wet constantly. And I ended up hooking up with another female runner. We started running together, motivating each other along. And we're coming into one of the life bases called Donas. And that's at about 150 kilometers into the race. And it's actually the lowest elevation point in the course. And so we agreed together, okay, let's go in, have a bit of a recharge, have a bit of a nap, and we'll team up. So I thought, great plan, women supporting one another. We came into the life base. I had some pizza, had a little bit of a massage from a young Italian man. Thought I was doing pretty well. Tucked myself in for my cot, for my nap, and we agreed what time we would set our alarms to wake up, and had my nap. And when I woke up, the other woman was gone. Wah, wah. So, and then I, as I'm kind of dealing with the disappointment that I'd been left behind, I start looking at my body. And because I had started to sleep and I'd started to relax, my body thought that we were done racing, and it had started to recover. And that meant inflammation. And my legs were starting to get a little bit larger than normal. And I tried to go put on my shoes, and I could barely fit my feet into my shoes. I thought, oh no. So there we go, trundling off, this kind of marshmallow Michelin man, inflamed person, feeling quite sorry for myself, going off into the middle of the night, climbing up the mountain on my own. Now I think I'm in about 6th place. I make it through the night. The weather's getting worse and worse. So more rain, there's fog. We make it to the 3rd day. And I have now gotten so inflamed that my legs, inside even my clothing, starts to feel super uncomfortable. I'm wearing a running skirt with a pair of built-in shorts underneath. And so when I come up to a checkpoint called Neil, they make the best polenta in the valley. I come to this checkpoint and, go straight to my crew. And then I ask one of the volunteers if they have a pair of scissors. And I think that they thought that I was going to cut something off of my race pack. But as soon as they gave me the scissors, I put it up my skirt and cut off the running shorts underneath my skirt. And they looked horrified as I pull out this grimy piece of basically running underwear from my clothes to throw into the bin. That I am now going to proceed through the mountains, going up over 3,000 meters, basically naked underneath my running skirt. But really, I just felt like, release the thighs was kind of the mantra going through my head. Just release it into the open, and maybe that will help me feel a little bit better. So it helped for a little while. I'm trundling along, realizing that if a strong breeze came my way, I was basically flashing everyone in front of me. But the other problem that I was facing was that because of all of the rain and the moisture and the sweat, the chafing started coming. Oh, yes. And if you have seen those photos of men finishing marathons with bleeding nipples, just picture that in your nether regions. And that's basically what we were dealing with. So now I'm running naked through the Alps with ass chafing and trying to figure out, how do you come back from this? How am I going to run another 175, 150 kilometers like this? So the next checkpoint was this little hut in the mountains. I descend down towards the hut, and these guys had, I think, been drinking all day. They were having a party. There were guys with a tuba, I don't know how they got it up there in the mountains, but they were having a grand old time. And I ran up to them, trying to explain that I'm having this ass chafing problem. Do they have anything? One guy pulls out a banana and makes a motion to smash it between my hands. And I thought, oh my God, are we now at the point where I'm going to put a smushed up banana in my bike crack so that I can run 150 more kilometers? I wasn't quite there. So I go inside the hut and explain to the woman inside, who I don't think had been drinking as much. And she didn't speak any English. And I thought, what is the word in Italian for lube? And so I said, lubio. And I said, lubio. And that is not the word for lube. And, I pointed to my nether regions and made kind of a friction motion with my hands. And she reached into the back and pulled out this pot of God knows what. And she gave it to me and she said, do you need me to help? Do you need me to help you? And I thought, okay, she does not understand exactly what I'm dealing with here, because now some strange woman is offering to lube up my ass crack. But I took this pot of whatever it was, put it in my nether regions, and that got me at least to the next checkpoint. And I'm continuing on in this manner, thinking I am really on my last legs here. And now we are going through near the end of the third day. I'm going up. There's a section that's above 2,000 meters. It's dense fog at this point. And I'm stumbling around, half naked, freezing temperatures, God knows what, smeared all over my nether regions. And I come up to a little hut, little bivouac. Stumble inside, desperate for a sleep. And I managed to say to the volunteers, wake me up in an hour. And I just collapse on the little mattresses they have in the dorm and go for an hour's sleep. I wake up, I walk into the next room where the volunteer was there making this hot pot of soup. And he poured me a bowl of soup and he said, "Where are your pants?" And it was a fair question, because everyone else was in down jackets, head to toe. This was a freezing mountain environment, and I'm there in a little running skirt. And I said to him, "Look, I've started getting swollen. I'm inflamed. I had to cut the shorts actually out of my skirt." Like I said, quite, embarrassed. I said, "I'm actually not even wearing any underwear." And he looks at me and he goes, "I know." And I realized when I had come into the refuge, I was so desperate to sleep that I had just flopped down on the bed, spread eagle, just showing all of my bits to this poor man. And at that point, there was nothing I could do. I thought, this is where we're at. It's over 200K. I've still got over 100K to go. And this lovely man would not let me leave that hut, that refuge, without having proper clothing. And so he took off his own pair of pants. And luckily, he was wearing more underneath than I was. It's not that kind of story. You're not getting that kind of story tonight. But he took off his own pants and gave them to me to be able to continue on in the race. And there is absolutely no way that I would have finished that race without wearing this man's pants. And I think in my delirium, that's when I offered him my first unborn child. And all jokes aside, I ended up finishing as much of that race as I could. They actually stopped the race that year because the weather was so bad. And when they stopped the race, I was in sixth. But I came back the year after and finished in second. What I learned out there is that, you have to take care of one another, because one day you are the one spread eagle half naked on a mattress in a bivouac, but the other day it'll be someone else, and you have to be willing to give your pants to someone and not expect to get them in return, or offer to smush up a banana that they can stick down their pants to stop some chafing. But it's such a selfless and compassionate type of culture that has really carried me through all of my races and all of my mountain adventures after that.
Our second storyteller tonight is Hillary Gerardi. Hillary is a world champion skyrunner with top podium results around the world to her credit. She's one of the fiercest competitors we know and a longtime friend to many of us here at Run the Alps. She even freelances with us from time to time. Hillary and her husband Brad, a widely respected Chamonix mountain guide, have lived in France for 10 years now. Originally from St. Johnsbury, Vermont, she recently became a French citizen and now holds dual U.S.-France citizenship. Those of us who live here in Chamonix will never forget the sunny June day 3 years ago when Hillary ran and climbed from the Saint-Michel church in town to the summit of Mont Blanc and back in 7 hours, 27 minutes, and 39 seconds, shattering the prior fastest known time and cementing her place in the pantheon of legendary Chamonix mountain runners. It was a moment that was years in the works for Hillary, and it was a bold display of her determination. In this story, however, we hear how Hillary's determination can sometimes go in unexpected directions when she's arguably a little bit out of her element. Let's get right to it.
This happened before I was actually a trail runner, and except I actually was a trail runner, because what I didn't know back then is that hiking is also trail running. And especially what I did back in the day, this was when I was in college, university. And so this was in 2007, and I was studying abroad in Thailand, and I was in northeastern Thailand, and in a city called Khon Kaen, and it's like totally flat. It's entirely flat. And I ended up over the semester that I was there, like feeling kind of claustrophobic, like that almost the reverse of claustrophobic, but I'm just used to having hills around me. I'm from Vermont, like Mirna, and it's, green and hilly. And I just really was like craving like greenery and nature. And at the end of our study abroad trip, we all went, my whole program, to this island called Khao Soi, off the coast of Thailand. And we're going on the ferry to go there, and I'm just delighted because I see like these mountains coming right up out of the water, and they're green and it's beautiful. It's like exactly like the postcard that you imagine of Southeast Asia. And I was so excited, and I could see there's this one mountain in the middle, and I was like, I gotta go up there. I've got to do it. I can't wait. This is like, I've been waiting to go trail running for so long. And I get there, and we get to like the hotel, and I ask at the desk, like, okay, like, how do I get to go up there? And they're like, oh, it's very dangerous. Like, you cannot go up there alone. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, this island is like 10 kilometers across. Like, how bad can this be? And they're like, no, you must hire a guide. I also had no money at the time. I was very poor, and I was like, and a big enough ego from all of the hiking. And I was like, absolutely no way I'm going to hire a guide for this. And, I asked a couple different people around the hotel, how do I go up this mountain? And they were like, well, oh yes, you must hire a guide. And I was like, this will not be happening. So I'm like, I'm going to take this into my own hands, and I'm going to go into the little town, and I'm going to ask the local people who are not necessarily in the tourism industry, how do you go up the mountain? Because surely other people have said at some point, like, oh, I wonder what it looks like from up there. So I'm going to figure this out. My Thai wasn't great, but I was like, I can get through to them, whereas I'd been speaking English at the hotel. So I go and I'm like walking down the street with some friends, and I'm like, I'm gonna just pop into this shop and I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna ask him. And I didn't know what the mountain was called. I had no idea, but I'd overheard some of the guys on our trip calling it Nom Yai. So I was like, oh, Nom Yai, that must be the name of the mountain. So I pop into the shop, and I was, like asking, I can't even really remember now, Chan Bai Ti Nom Yai. And they're just like looking at me like, what are you talking about? And I'm just like, like Nom Yai, and like trying to say, I want to go up there. Have you been there? Nom Yai, Nom Yai. And they're just like almost looking offended by me. And finally, I like take the lady from the store out into the street, and I'm like pointing at the mountain, and I'm like, Nom Yai, I want to go to Nom Yai. And then suddenly a friend of mine bursts out laughing because Nom Yai means big breast. It is not the name of the mountain. It is big titties. And I had been just like harassing this woman. How can I go to the big breast? Have you been to the big breast? Does anyone you know been to the big breast before? Surely you can tell me how to get to the big boobs. And perhaps in my defense, maybe even if I had known, like I might not have really blanched at the name, because we have like the Grand Tetons in the US, which just means big nipples in French. But still, it was this absolute gaffe that I had at that time. And eventually I did find somebody who could tell me how to go to the Big Titty, and it was a fine hike. It wasn't terribly exciting, but it felt very good to be there, and it reinforced for me the importance of just going for it. Don't be afraid to make a fool of yourself. Just get out there and find those big titties.
Our final storyteller is Mirna Valerio. Mirna grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and has lived around the U.S. and now calls Winooski, Vermont home. And while she's not a Chamonix resident like our other two guests, she visits us enough that she might as well be. And by the way, we'll welcome that day if it ever comes, Mirna. Many of you probably know Mirna as an experienced trail runner, but there are a few things you don't know about her, we're betting. She's also a gifted speaker, writer, and author of the book A Beautiful Work in Progress. And yes, she's even an opera singer. You can join her on a Run the Alps trip if you want a chance to experience the latter on the trail. Mirna is working on a novel now about a Black lady and her teenage son who go on a multi-day backpacking trip in the southern Appalachians in the U.S. As Mirna says, whatever could go wrong? Mirna is one of the funniest people we know, and in this story she takes us high into the Colorado Rockies just as her emotions hit rock bottom until, well, something surprising happens. I'll let her tell the story.
The year is 2017. It's August, and I'm making my way up the Sheep Gulch Trail. You probably know where this is, in Leadville, up to Hope Pass, and it's going very, very slowly. Very slowly. I'm in last place. It's the second day of the Trans Rockies 6-day stage race. I had been invited there. I had to speak. I had to do all these things because the race director had seen me on the news. NBC Nightly News. And he was like, she needs to be at my race. So I find myself climbing up this hill, 2017, August. It's a dry day. I'm moving very slowly. I'm with the sweeps, Liz and Heather. And they are not pulling me up by my bootstraps, but they're pulling me up by my lucky straps. And because I'm not a contender for anything, they're just trying to help me finish. So we are moving slowly. I'm not able to breathe, like now because I have a little cold. Not able to breathe very well. My legs are burning. My heart is burning. Everything is burning. And they want to make sure that I get to Hope Pass before these afternoon storms start. And there's definitely an ominous cloud in the background. And so we're making our way up these switchbacks, and I get to the top, and it's the most amazing thing that I had ever experienced. I was at 12,600 feet, and as we Americans call in freedom units. I don't know what that is in meters. It was high up, right? I had never been that high, and there are all there's the Buddhist flags up there. There are people up there that were waiting for me to see if I needed any medical aid or anything like that, and it was just so phenomenal. And then we get to run down, and I really like running down technical descents. I really love it, and I'm feeling really good. Even though getting up there was really hard, I'm feeling really good. And so we get to the bottom of that descent. There's 5 more miles left of the race, but there's a medic there. His name is Barrett. Remember his name, Barrett. Hey, Mirna, how you doing? Oh, I'm feeling good. The climb was really hard, but I'm feeling really, really good. I'm ready to finish and get it done. He's like, about that, you are 2.5 hours behind the person in front of you. So I'm going to give you a choice. You can continue with the sweeps. They've been so gracious with you today, and make everybody wait 2.5 hours for you to finish, because at this rate, it's going to take you that long. Or you can come out with me on this flat, less than a mile long trail to a trailhead where we'll be picked up. Now I have a conundrum. I don't want everybody to be waiting for me at the finish line because they have to take it down and set it up for the next day. Remember, this is a 6-day race. I also don't want to quit because I had been invited. I don't want to disappoint anyone. I don't want to disappoint myself. So I decide to stop my race and go out with Barrett, and was immediately disappointed. I start crying. I was really ugly crying. The kind of crying where you're like, your face is snotty and you're like, like a baby. And so we're walking out, and Barrett is just talking his head off. We were meant to be here today together. We were meant to be on this trail together. This could potentially be a transformational thing for you, a transformational experience for you. I'm like, shut the fuck up, guy. And I'm crying, I'm sobbing, And the trail is not less than a mile, and it is not flat, right? So I'm walking uphill. We're about 1.5 miles into this now. Okay, I was mad at everything. I was mad at the rocks. I was mad at the trees. I was mad at the sky. I was definitely mad at Barrett, and I was mad at myself, right? So we near the end of this trail, and at this point, I had made peace with myself. This is part of trail running. This is part of sports. Sometimes we don't finish. Sometimes, it doesn't go the way we want it to go or the way that we need it to go. And so we get to the trailhead. We sit down on some boulders, waiting for our ride, and I start getting in my head again. I start crying and sobbing. Being really disappointed in myself because, what is everybody going to think? I couldn't finish the race because I'm fat, because I'm whatever, And then I get a ping on my phone. The whole day we had no service. But in this moment, I got a ping on my phone, and it was my mom messaging me on Facebook. Backtrack to my mom. That summer, I had been training a lot in Brooklyn and in Georgia, trying to run up and down mountains, getting strong. And my mother had never been to a gym before. She was in her 60s at this point. And I said, Mom, let's go to the gym. She's like, no, the gym is only for skinny white people. So I wanted to change that for her. I wanted her to feel a sense of agency. I wanted her to know that these 2 gyms right around the corner from you are for you. Right? So we go to the gym. I taught her how to use the treadmill. I taught her how to use the elliptical. I taught her how to use the Stairmaster. And so anyway, back to being in Leadville, she DMs me and she says, hey, Mirna, I hope you're having a great day. I'm so proud of you for bringing yourself out there, for getting to do this. And I just wanted to let you know that I went to the gym by myself. And I did 15 minutes on the treadmill, 10 minutes on the elliptical. and 5 minutes on that stupid stair thing you told me. God bless, and God willing, I'll be back on Friday. I hope you're having a great race. And in that moment, I stopped crying, because it was in that moment that I knew why I do what I do. My simple act of moving my body over various types of terrain, and even skiing now, because now she wants to be a skier, which is amazing. My simple act of movement influenced her to want to move herself. The next year, I signed up for the race again. This time I paid. It was very expensive. And I trained differently. I got a coach, and then I did it again. And this time I finished with the help of two other sweeps, Tim and Chris. Tim from New York, Chris from Georgia. And it was like a half a mile away from the finish. And we're at Beaver Creek in Colorado. It's a ski area. And I am making my way up to the last bit of the course. Tim and Chris are behind me. Tim is saying, "Oh my God, I'm crying. Oh my God, you're like making me cry, Mirna." And Chris is like, "Dang it, you know, my sunglasses are steaming up." Dang it. And they had been with me the entire time. And it was just like, we have this beautiful friendship now. As I'm going down the last half mile, I could hear the announcer at the bottom, Scott Davis, a Brit. "Mirna's about a kilometer away. Let's let her hear us." And so they're all screaming. And now I'm crying, because I'm like almost finished this big race. And we get down there. Tim and Chris say, "Stop. Fix your clothes." Instagram. Fix your clothes. They stand back. I run through the gauntlet of people and finish. It's an amazing thing. I immediately vomit after that. And the cool thing about that was seeing me finish this thing the next year, because I was like the only Black person there. The next year, 3 other Black people signed up. They said, "We saw you on the socials doing this really hard thing, being the only Black person, and you came back. So that must mean it's okay. It's okay for us to do that. We can do it too." And then the next year, all of Harlem was there. Literally, Harlem Run was there. Like all these, And what that experience did, and what other experiences like it, even being here and getting to work with these beautiful people in Run the Alps, visibility is a thing. Representation is a thing. People seeing me move allowed them to move themselves towards their purpose, towards whatever it is that they wanted and needed to do for themselves. Oh, I forgot to tell that part of the story. Barrett was waiting for me the second year at the top of Hope Pass. And we're friends now. Because we definitely weren't friends then. So he was waiting for me, and we both broke down into tears. So Barrett is a good guy now.
And there we go. 3 stories from our Run the Alps staff party. We hope you enjoyed them. Thanks for listening. Tales from the Trail, Stories from Je Suis Franc in Chamonix, France, was produced by Catherine Fenollosa and Doug Mayer and edited by Catherine. We had support from Leigh-Anne Burns. Our thanks to Hillary, Mirna, and Steph. If you like what you heard, we hope you'll join us on the Run the Alps guided or self-guided trip sometime. We have a whole lot of fun out there on the trail. It's a really good time. If you have questions or comments, you can email me anytime at doug@runthealps.com. From the trails here in Chamonix to the paths in your neighborhood, best wishes from all of us at Run the Alps, and we'll see you down the trail.